Very good afternoon, everybody. Today is the third day of the presentation by semester 4 students. And in today's session, we are having presentations on African literature. In this session, we will have presentations by Janvi on Wole Soyinka's Dystopia, Utopia vision in A Dance of the Forest. It will be followed by Jheel, Gabriel Okara's Postcolonial vision, You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed, and the piano and the drum. Followed by Khushboo, a study of Buchi Emecheta's The Joys of Motherhood, a post-colonial feminist theory. Uh, the title needs to be reworked in that. Mayuri on the joys of motherhood, myth or reality. In the novel, The Joys of Motherhood, again, the title requires to be reworked. Two times the same thing, I think, is given. The Joys of Motherhood. Or in the novel needs to be reworked. Nehalba on Fanonism and constructive violence in Petals of Blood. Nidhi Dave Postmodern Spirit in Ngugi Thiong'o's Petals of Blood, based on the concept of Homi K. Nilay on an analysis of the imagery and symbolism in Chinua Achebe's Vulture. Nirav on political corruption and capitalist dominance in Ngugi Thiong'o's Petals of Blood, and Vachalta on motherhood and madness in the Joys of Motherhood. So one thing again, a reminder that when you make a title and within the title there is the title of the text, then you will have to differentiate that. Either italicized or single inverted comma. Sometimes even double inverted comma also people use. But italicized or single inverted comma should be used to differentiate the thing, which is not found in many of the titles also, like Nehalba, Petals of the Blood, then Nidhi also Petals of Blood is without that, and Vachaltas also, the joys of motherhood is not put either italicized or in single inverted comma. So that again is something that we have reminded several times, and even on the last day also we have to remind something as simple as only title. Uh, we have to move towards arguments and many other things also, but simple things are also still not like grabbed or put into practice. Unless things are not put into practice, it is very difficult to get convinced that everybody is learning the basics of doing the things. Okay, so let us start today's one. Janvi, you can start this. Share your screen. Start playing in Google Slides. Start playing in Google Slides and start presenting. I'm still seeing Google Classroom in English.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is our last day of our presentation. It's a presentation about the African literature, and my topic is Wole Soyinka's dystopian utopian vision in a dance of the forest. This is my personal details. Wole Soyinka. Wole Soyinka is a Nigerian playwright, poet, and the essayist. He was born on July 13, 1934. He is one of the African most prominent writers, and he's won numerous awards for his works, including the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. Soyinka's writing often explore theme of politics, cultures, and society within a patriarchal focus on the post-colonial experience in African. He is known for his use language and his innovative approach to literary forms, which includes incorporating elements of Yoruba mythology and folklore into his work. Soyinka has also been a vocal advocate for human rights and democracy, and has been active in political movements throughout his career. He is widely regarded as one of the most important African writers of the 20th century. About the Dance of the Forest play. A Dance of the Forest play was written for a special occasion, the Nigerian independence celebration, October 1960. Let that be our first clue to the meaning of the town delivers of the play are also engaged in the national level. The play is set in the mythical village of the which of the located in the forest of the spirits. The villagers are preparing for a festival to celebrate the end of the era and the beginning of the new one. The festival is meant to be a celebrate of a life and renewal. But it is not also time to re-knocking, as the villagers must confirm that the things of the past and challenges of the future. Another side, the play of the play of the divide of the three act and the past life character, present life character, and divided in the character of the god, ghost, and the human, and the play connected with the past and the present of the Nigerian people. And another side, the play was notable of the use, the symbolism and the metaphor of the explorer of theme of tradition, modernity, modernity and the colonialism, though the in dereliction between the villagers and the colonists. Soyinka highlight the tension and conflict that rise when the different culture come into the contrast with one another. In the novel, the dystopian utopian vision in the Dance of the Forest, uh, the Dayon de Jaco sees the structure of the play as a beginning formalistic, extravagant, and as not being controlled, as well as a plodish. As the point to be noted is that geographically exclusive of Soyinka's settings as a distance past in the play, hint as the vision of utopianism or dystopianism. While utopian past and the dystopian present is often enunciated as a narrative gesture that consequently lead of the frontiers that is the utopian. The revise that the case in the play. What is the whole Soyinka despite of the dystopian past as well as a dystopian present and the future? Another way of the Soyinka reject neglected glorification and the idealization in the African past, based on the negative recognition of reconstruction of the African past, which analytical to the glorification in the work from narrated writer Soyinka, instant to the bro the word of windy brown that there are no. the lost way of life and lost course of pursuit. Another of the dystopian because she is instead of confronting problems that have occupied so often in the human uh, communities that they seem almost unavoidable part of human nature. Another side, despite of the dystopian images that polluted Soyinka's play, he still hint at that regeneration of the human world. For instead of the plot, which itself of dystopian, still has utopian elements implied in that connected with the past and the present as the failure of the future. In the play, they start beginning the festival in the forest, and the human characters. Human character recall to the past character, dead man and the dead woman in connected with the topic. So Wigman see the Wigman says the encyclopedic or dystopic as a work of which writers the present as the failure of the future. A dance of the forest which Soyinka and Wigman explanation or observation by writing past and the present as the failure of the future. This is a event. Evident as already noted from the past and present violent action of the Soyinka's major characters. This is a play, therefore, in which past and the in the present conflict in the metonically re-agreement of violence and the bloodshed. Soyinka stressed the history of a hopeless past and compared with the definitive present to the forecast a blank future. Another side is the prologue of the Aruni used to the original text. According to the incident of the festivity being to characterized by the social harmonies fate to the withinest is harmony between the between the citizens, between the living and the dead, and the between to the divinities of the tribe. So, for instance, the dead man and the dead woman have come in judgment against the living, whilst the game tries to get right of them. In this reacts Soinka instead that. Aristocrats that have so often characterized human infractions are unavoidable. Another side, it is within the frame of the reference that Soinka dystopian settings of the past, present, and the future of the calamities desire for a utopian future. So the there should the note of the satirics decrease beneath to the world of wise, weakness and failure, a kind of ideal world attainable only if you people heed a satirist creations for uprightness implied his connotations of individual. Another side, Miller observation that dystopians motivate out of the utopian premises in that they force us the comfort the dystopian element so that we can work through them and being again. Another side, dead man observation that nothing has changed. Our 18th century is itself a call for a new beginning that would guarantee a promising future. The past is gone, the present is here, but the future is yet come. By painting a dystopian past and present and forecasting a gloomy future, Soyinka warns that the mistake of the past and the present should be avoided a better future. Another side, representation of the African past in a dance of the forest. So in this way, Soyinka In this, Soyinka early mentioned that in a quote, this is a because of this is so because in a work that a quest for a utopian future that past must be uh, reconstructed in a such a way that a living seek re-sculpture the past in the future. But is NOQ observation Soyinka in this play dramatized man's productivity to the selectivity, edit his past turn and blind eyes. So front and welt his ignored past and choose the highlighted of a icon days instead. And another side, the Soyinka posted with his poetic rumination is that there nothing glorious in Africa, past nothing etheric about the present. The actor of the court of Mata Kharibu is the past character life in the 18th century. Earlier, he is repeated by the recreated self under different constituency in the present world. Adnebi is a pioneer except 1800 years ago was the court of historian to Mata Kharibu. And he argued that the war is the only constituency that the past arcs afford us, thereby validating the death of many soldiers in a senseless war. That is encouraged, and the present he is occupied a council octor responsible for the death of the 65 passenger only the lorry. He had license to carry passenger beyond it capacity. Another major character is Rola and Madame Tortoise, who is previous world was a war and Mata Kharibu's wife responsible for the death of dead man and dead woman. This is my work citation. Thank you.
Janvi, as you mentioned, this play has dystopian setting. So, is there any similar work related to this play or story or myth you can find?
Yes, in this play, the beginning with a festival in the forest and recall the past character uh, with the misbehavior and injustice myth in use. Spirit myth in use.
Uh, one more question to you like this. Can implications or we can say this indirect references to the political system or the future of the nation after independence. So given by the playwright, that is Wole Soyinka, in the play he considers his escapism from direct call of criticism. So in a sense I want to say like he's not directly referring to the political things, but he seems to refer. We cannot even say that he referred, but he seems to. So can you say that there is a kind of escapism in there?
in in this play, Wole Soyinka used the before independence of the Nigerian people and the after independence of the Nigerian and the colonist people and the uh, and the colonizer people to behave in the independence, uh, but I'm not to confirm. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My presentation in the African literature paper is Gabriel Okara's post-colonial vision in his two poems, You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed, and The Piano and the Drums. This is my personal information. Introduction. Beginning with what is post-colonialism literature. According to M.H. Abraham, a critical analysis of the history, culture, literature, and modes of discourse that are specific to the former colonies of England, Spain, France, and other European imperial powers, these studies have focused especially on the third world countries in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean island, and South Africa. And MacLeod says that post-colonialism is a phenomenon that emphasizes on the idea of disorientation, which is valuable and productive process that aims at derailing the accustomed train of thought. Post-colonial literature can be identified easily as a rejection of the master narrative and the agenda which has an agenda to de-establish Eurocentric norms of literary and artistic value. African literature, according to Kahinde, in African literature there is an ugly period of colonialism which has affected Africa, the people's language, education, religion, artistic sensibilities, and popular culture. African literature, which is post colonial, is informative, meaningful, and instructive in shedding lights on the experience of the marginalized and dispossessed communities. Major writers in the Africa started writing their thoughts, which resulted into the rise of a negritude movement in Africa, which was to apprise the European that the culture and the tradition of the Africa are not inferior and is capable of producing high quality and towering literature. As we are going to discuss the African poet Gabriel Okara and his two poems. Introduction to the poet. Gabriel Okara was a Nigerian poet and is considered the first modernist poet of Anglophone Africa. Majorly in his work, he drew on African thought, religion, folklore, and imageries, and he is also known as the Nigerian negritude. According to the editor of his collected poems, Brenda Osbe, it is with the publication of Gabriel Okara's first poem that Nigerian literature in English and modern African poetry in this language can be said truly to has begun. The poetry of Gabriel Okara majorly depicts that the surrendered are trying to retrieve their loss. Beginning with his poem The Piano and the Drums. Okara in his writing majorly portrays the fear of losing one's heritage and identity and discuss the effect of colonization in Africa. The title itself of the poem shows the cultural dichotomy through the musical instrument, that is piano and the drums. The drum indicates the traditional African drums, while the piano represents the Western world which is complex in culture and tradition. One of the major theme of post-colonial literature is tension between the two, colonized and the colonizer. And this poem very effectively depicts the tension between the one time colonized area, that is Africa. There is a clash between the traditional African culture and the influence of the Western culture. The one theme which can be considered of post-colonial literature is the sense of displacement and alienation in the people who are colonized. And the very first line of the poem, that is, when at the break of day at a riverside, and then the narrator further in the poem is in the memory of his culture of Africa and remembering his older days. And suddenly there comes a voice of wailing piano which delegates him, due to which the narrator feels like an outsider of his own culture and is unable to fully connect to any of the culture, that is of Africa or Western traditions. Here we see that the narrator in the poem is completely wandering, which the last stanza of the poem also suggests. And I lost in the morning mist of an age at a riverside keep wandering in the mystic rhythm of jungle drums and concerto, which symbolizes, which depicts that he is wandering between the two cultures and is completely lost. So we can say that this poem by Gabriel Okara is a it gives us the idea of post-colonialism in the Africa and how people of Africa, the black people, are wandering and trying to come up with the loss of their culture and tradition. The another poem, who laughed, you laughed and laughed and laughed. In this poem, we find the power dynamic between the Africa and the West. This poem depicts the pain, suffering, and the emotional turmoil of the black people. In this poem, the poem has several lines like "You laughed at my song, my walk, my dance, my insight," which suggests that how the white people were belittling and insulting or insulting to the African and their primitive way of living and culture. But once, when the African got their own life, that is when they got freedom from the white, they got it was their turn to turn to laugh. That was, now it's my turn to laugh. But my laughter is not ice block laughter. Here, the laughter of white people was written as ice block laughter, the laughter which has no sympathy and had an insulting tone, while the laughter of black was of fire, was of passion, and it thawed your inside, that it melted the white people from inside. And in the last stanza, the Gabriel Okara indicates that the land is there because my fathers and I owned by the living warmth of the earth through our naked feet. The land belonged to them, and so their laughter was full of fire, full of passion. Here we see that Okara in this poem reveals the dual attitude of the colonizers toward Africa, that is, exploiting them while also displaying humiliating and insulting behavior. In this poem, the post colonial themes like having a power dynamic which is reversed further, and the resistance power of the black makes this poem a post colonial poem. In the conclusion, I would like to say that, as Abraham said, that post-colonial literature is analysis of history, culture, literature of the former colonies. And in this both poem, Gabriel Okara is giving us an influence of the white on the African culture, that how they were trying to get over the African culture. And as per the McLeod defined, that post-colonialism is a phenomenon that emphasizes on disorientation and aims derailing the accustomed trains of thought. As we saw that in the poem, the piano and the drums, the narrator is completely disoriented. He is not able to connect to any of the culture or tradition. And in the next poem, which is "You laughed and laughed and laughed," they are trying to come out of the thoughts which are already settled by the white people. In this poem, the master narratives of colonialism is disrupted through the description of narration and dramatization of the condition of the colonized in a colonial setup. So we can say that Gabriel Okara successfully subverts the stereotypes, inaccuracies, and generalization of the white colonizers regarding the Africans, which are in circulation through his description and narration. These are my citation. Thank you.
Can you say that Gabriel is one of the racism victim? So that this concept of two culture is coming time and again in his works.
We can consider that Gabriel Okara himself has been victim of racism, but he himself is himself belongs to Africa. He is a Nigerian poet, and he might have personally faced or personally was affected by the colonization of the white people, and so we can say that his poetry is trying to bring out the post-colonial effect, what through what the Africa is going after the sudden freedom from the white.
Sis, my question is, how does Gabriel Okara use the literary device such as imaginary symbolism and contrast between the two poems post-colonialism?
Yes. Talking about the imagery, symbolism, and the contrast in these two poems, the piano and the drum itself, the title itself has an imagery of piano and the drums. That is, the piano is imagery of Western civilization, and drum is becoming the imagery for the African or a black people. And also in the poem, the you laughed and laughed and laughed, the metaphor is used for the laughing, that the laughter of white is known as ice rocked or ice blocked laughter. I don't know. I'm not remembering the specific word. And while the laughter of black people or African after freedom is no is given a metaphor of the fire. So that's it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. I am Khushboo Makwana, and today my topic is about study of post-colonial feminist theory in the novels of The Joy of Motherhood. These are my personal information. Uh, these are the table contents. Introduction. Buchi Emecheta's The Joys of Motherhood narrates the story of traditional woman Nanuigo, who knows her identity and its completion, it having and many children, especially the boy one, who suffering from a poverty she know herself rich, for she has three sons. It seems to her that she would have, according to Ibuza tradition, a comfortable old age due to her son's help. Having a detailed Nanuigo's painful life in Lagos, a colonized city, the novel ends with her tragic death alone. yet far from being devoted to her children, exposing her joys of motherhood. Nanuigo dies at the end of the story, a lonely death with no child to hold her hand and no friend to talk to her. She had never really made many friends. So busy had she been building up her joys as a mother, though depicting the oppression and suffering Nanuigo experience in Lagos. Emecheta's indeed highlights the effect of capital politics and colonial patriarchal regimes in the third world, women's marginalized and domination. What is a post-colonial feminist theory? A post-colonial feminism is a form of feminism that developed as a response to feminism focusing solely on the experience of women in Western cultures and former colonies. A post-colonial feminism emerged as a reaction to the early proponents of post-colonial theory, men who were occupied with nation building after empire and colonialism had destroyed indigenous peoples' history. It criticized colonial powers and the hegemonic powers established by indigenous men after the empire. The post-colonial feminists also worked to incorporate the ideas of indigenous and the other third world feminist movements into a mainstream Western feminism. uh, are women as a homogeneous group, as the story of invisibility and marginalized of women who have no voice. Emecheta's The Joy of the World, Motherhood, aims at the rewriting and integral part of history, which has been dismissed Indeed, Emecheta seeks for Ibuza women being multiply marginalized and oppressed by colonial and indigenous patriarchal society. In the novel, female figures are multiply victimized by oppressive forces of race, gender, and class, though one cannot refer to them as a homogeneous group. The third world woman, ignoring the diversity among women, consider all the native women as a homogeneous group. However, women have different identity, history, struggle, and everyday lives. In fact, women are not as a singular monolithic subject. Even when they share the same culture, they are still different. The third world women should rewrite their history based on a woman's specific location and struggle and everyday their lives. In this regard, Emecheta carefully delineates the diversity among the native female figure through their resistance against the patriarchal oppression and domination. In that Ona is a pro in that the novel the character Ona is a proud woman with a male power. Adaku a representation of independent woman. This struggles for her independence and freedoms. And Nanuiko, a traditional woman, she accepts the superiority of men, and she always tries to be a good daughter for her father and a good wife for her husband. Hence, the regarding woman as a homogeneous group, as a assumption of woman as a always already constructed group, one that has been labeled powerless, exploited, sexuality harassed. Other colonial policies and women's recognition. The joys of motherhood unfolds the event in Nigeria during the period of that time. It was colonized by British imperialism, the European invention and the colonialism of Africa in the 19th century. It had an enormous impact of Nigerian history, and it because brought about a series of social, culture, economics, and political challenges in Nigeria. In this novel, Emecheta carefully depicts the way in which the colonial discourses brings about change, such as a religious one. In Lagos, through the institution, the workers are determined to be off only half a day in the week, and that is on Sundays in order to attend the church. The marriage should be done in the church, otherwise it is regarded as an illegal marriage. In that the Nagoiga ego and she married to the Nanai and Nanai left his job. Left his job because of they both married in not married married in a church. The colonial party, the patriarchal regime in Lagos, the colonized city with reinforced native patriarchy, make women even more silent and oppressed than before. In this throw, outlining different ways of oppression women experience in this society, Emecheta disclosed the explanation and marginalized the woman, uh, or in the other words, women's recognition in Lagos. Uh, uh, Emecheta in this inequality in the colonial and indigenous patriarchal society determines the value of human being. Male child is the attached excess importance while a female child is considered as other. In the post-colonial feminist engagement with Western feminism, which regard the subaltern third-world women as the victims of their own patriarchal society, regardless of the specific historical and social context. The joy of motherhood challenge this common assumption in Western feminism that child birth is a unwaged dominant labor.
Check now. Try to reconnect. Yes, now it is, I think, restored. Try to. Are you able to connect?
Black
Black
woman
woman
solidarity, the common
solidarity,
context of
the common
struggle.
context of struggle.
Woman solidarity can be traced in Emecheta's novel, The Joy of Motherhood, while considering that African women's lives are colonized and exploited by different factors such as capitalism, colonialism, and indigenous patriarchy. Emecheta's in echoes the sign of African women's solidarity based on the common interest, historical location, and social identity. In Emecheta's novel, Ibuza women have the monthly meeting in Lagos and constructed solidarity among them. They help each other in order to both make life easier for themselves and have a life of their own. Emecheta attempts to explore that women of color have a different acknowledgement that solidarity is the only way which constitute their commonality within the power structure. There was far more to be gained by communication, by description, unity of action and blackness in the joy of motherhoods, demystify the common context of struggle among women of color in Igbo society. The gender issue in the joy of motherhood. Beside criticizing colonialism, capitalism, and racism, the joy of motherhood points out the way in which women are women are silenced and oppressed by native patriarchy, and however, this oppression is not medicated by race and class. Emecheta disclosed Igbo woman as the victim of social patriarchy and men as the oppressors. In her novel, The Joy of Motherhood, she offers her critique on the native patriarchal domination through exposing the violent oppression and exploitation of the this disparagement female character Ona, who lives in Ibuza, takes the position of a male child for a father who has not any boy. With all power and responsibility the first son has. Hence, the traditional patriarchy offers her the male power, but it gives her sense of femininity. And Adaku, who struggles to be independent and makes her own decision, was regarded as an ambitious woman by Edenko, her senior wife, and one who represents those women who accept their fate. In conclusion, The Joy of Motherhood, an extraordinary novel which unfolds the story of invisibility and marginalized of African women who have no voice, aim at reconstructing power of history which is diminished. Buchi Emecheta in her novel managed to disclose women's marginalization and oppression by both colonial and indigenous patriarchal regimes. Colonialism is obscurely demonstrated in the novels of The Joy of Motherhood. All levels of society, including the Nigerian families and individuals, are severely affected by European idealistic standards. Nanuigo has to reach for a novel structure of joy while traditional culture attempts to continue in a world of Lagos. Her ego Rigo clearly stands for a traditional thinking of a society. Emecheta indeed echoes how women are subject to double oppression by the intersection of oppressive force of gender, race, and class. Moreover, she is going to highlight the female sexual oppression, gender inequality, and gender difference in Igbo patriarchy. This is my website.
Khushboo, my question is, how does Emecheta challenge traditional notion of motherhood and femininity through the portrayal of the female characters in his work? And you can focus more on the portrayal of new ego.
Uh, Emecheta challenged the traditional nation of motherhood. She defines she portrayed the Nanu ego as a motherhood. She worked for her children, and she she got a job for her children, and other characters are novel. They uh, also uh, also are independent for in our patriarchal societies.
Khushboo, my question is, how does Emecheta's The Choice of Motherhood challenge and subvariant patriarchal norms and gender role in the post-colonial Nigerian society?
Uh, the novel is based on a Nigerian society. They are colonized by the European states, and she 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 portrayed the female character in his in her novel to e- uh,
You have also cited from study material sites, which we have time and again reminded that you are not supposed to cite from the study, but you have to go for quality journals instead of such websites.
so shall I start?
This is not sure.
Hello everyone. In African literature paper, my topic is the choice of motherhood, myth or reality. my personal information, uh, author introduction. Buchi Emecheta is a Nigerian writer, and after marriage, she was lived with her husband in Britain, and then her academic journey was started. The bit information about the text, about the central character, the new ego, and the story unfold with her character and circumstances which she was faced and struggle in her life, her motherhood, and her feminine quality always challenged the joys of motherhood, myth or reality. In many societies, motherhood is wrapped in a many culture and religious meaning. Culture, as in what the society thinks a mother should be. That is, some elements associated with mother and religiously. It is what the practiced faith of particular society attached to the to motherhood. Uh, Not only the African society, our Indian society, we are also. The novel explores the way in which Buchi Cheta uses the imaginary and symbolism to the link motherhood and nature, highlighting the interconnectedness between women's and bodies and the natural world. For example, Ngugi's body is described as the fertile land and that produced the life. And also, when she was a barren in her first marriage, also the author connected her with the barren land. Motherhood is expected to be the selfless joy, realized in the joy of the mother's children rather than the joy of owned by herself. The image of African women were driven exclusively by the African man, who idealized them in their writing. Their one dimensional romanticized image of the African woman, primarily, Primarily, as a mother, is a contrary to the illustrated by M. Cheta in her novels, rather than a simply portraying the African woman. African mother as the symbol of love, security, and reverence. The joys of motherhood, Buchi M. Cheta breaks away from the prevalent and many African writing and the tradition she was break down with the irony of the joys of motherhood, the traditional vision of the children as the source of joy and wealth, who more than imply a repay and a trouble of their upbringing. Emcheta portrays the children as milestone around the mother's neck, as the greedy parasites who stuck their mothers to the death. Children do not always maintain a strong and loving ties with their mothers and throughout the adulthood. In the last part of the novel, the main character, Nu Ego, was died alone, and then was a convenience is that her children, most of their her son, was not taking care of her. It was also similar with our society also, that in the childhood a mother nurtured her children. It was boy or girl, it doesn't matter, but in the old age, the sons, especially the sons, have the reward their mother. The joys of motherhood, Mcheta extend her metaphor of the enslaved Igbo woman, arguing that a society also programmed women to be a slave of their male offspring as well as their husbands. In her first marriage, Nuigo was barren, so the society, her own father, uh, we can say that they are continuously torture him to becoming a mother, or she was also the feeling that when if I am the mother of any children, a girl or boy, so this society was respected me. The Revati argue that while motherhood is often idealized and romanticized in the society, it is also a role that is fraught with the challenges and contradiction. In Nu Ego, while her children, two sons, she was nurturing, she was sold her own clothes also for nurturing them for their education and everything. It was also the portrayal of idealized motherhood and romanticized the society in a role of mother. no ego. She was this line was she was discussed with her father. In her first marriage, her co-wife was pregnant and she was barren, so she was discussing with her father that I can't sorry, it was not that, but remember, I just forgot. Yes, yes. Her neighbor, Nuigo's neighbor, was telling her about to go to the shopping, and she tells her that I can't afford another outfit because I am nursing him. So you see, I can't go anywhere to share anything. Her first child, son, was died, and her another boy children who was ill. So she telling her neighbor that she was having only one pair of clothes, and she couldn't buy anything other than nurturing her son. Nuigo make sometimes Nuigo make the jealous her co-wife Adaku because she was only having the two daughters and Nuigo having the two sons. In their society, the boy children's are or male child is more prominent than female child. In a novel, she was also telling that her daughters that you have to go to work and your brothers have to go to the tuitions for their education and better future. In her first marriage, she was desperate for the motherhood, praying her chi that if I have the children, so her husband also respect her. In the novel, having a many children, struggle, poverty, she was nurture her child and even making them educated. But in the end of the novel, ideal and a dreamy motherhood image is broken by her sons. And in the last part, this dialogue was come that many of the people, when she was died, many of people in their society was telling that she was a wicked woman. She was never coming back, never coming to uh, make any woman fertile, or even their own children pray her. She was never written or never blessed them. Some important dialogue from the original text that portrays her motherhood. Conclusion: no ego, suffering from the poverty and her struggle at the end. She was died and never returned to bless her children, and not giving any blessing to a woman for the fertility or becoming a mother. It was a showing that she was not able to bless anyone to having a child and motherhood. Motherhood are not a myth or reality, but rather a complex, multi multi-faced experience that varies depending on individual circumstance and societal norms. While motherhood can bring immense happiness and fulfillment, it can be also the accompanied by hardship, sacrifice, and particularly for the woman living in the patriarchy and improvisional societies. The myth or reality we can consider more it is the reality. While the in the all the while she was not having any child or having the child, she was always thinking about the motherhood. But at the end, the realities comes. We can say that she can't able to face that her own son betrayed her, and it was more about the reality. The joys of motherhood can be in sometimes or some cases are the myth was fulfilled or the joy was fulfilled as a mother. But in the many time, if we consider this text, it was more about the reality, or it was also my interpretation to be see the new ego, her motherhood as a reality. Work citation. Thank you.
So maybe my question is, in your views, have the portrayal of motherhood in literature, media, and popular culture, and even in society, evolved over time? Yes, if yes, then how?
Yes, in a if we basically go through the social media, that portrayal of womanhood is more for the joys, but in the reality it was not happen. Many cases in around us was a we can consider as the motherhood as the reality. Many of the mothers are like a new ego. They are only seeing their children's only, not thinking about her own self. But while the time of the reward their mother, many of the sons are defeated her own parents. And social media, we can also consider that our contemporary time, many of the mother are very joyous and social media posts we say that baby showers and many things. They are uh, deliberately thinks that my motherhood is a joyous.
Mayuri, in your views, how motherhood idealizing in today's time?
In my point of view, the idealized motherhood is that we have to nurture our child, but we have to spend a time for ourselves. We have our own friend, so we can share with them our experience, what our son or daughter was doing with us. Nuigo was not having any friend, or even she was not spending her time with her own self. So she was idealized mother, but though she was defeated. Thank you.
Okay, by the time she gets ready, let me give a reminder that you have to submit the presentations of translation and comparative studies as well as dissertation also. Dissertation everybody has completed, but in this still many of you are pending. Here you have to give two separate attachments, one YouTube video and one PPT, which was presented as a group activity. 9 of you have submitted, 10 are still pending. So from this group also, Khushboo, Nehalba, Nidhi, Nilay, Vachalda, their work is yet not submitted. Remember, both the things you have to submit in separate file: video, link, and PPT. Yeah. It is a group, so it will be common sharing that you will have to do. And video, we are asking you because that way you will remember. When you want to refresh or when you want to prepare, you can watch video and you get some idea that that paper can be prepared also by watching those videos. For your exam purpose, you may require to listen those videos or read those articles again. So this completed within 1 or 2 days. These things should be.
start.
You can start.
Hello everyone. Today is the third day of our presentation. Uh, my topic is feminism and the constructive violence in Petal of Bloods. This is my personal information. About author Ngugi wa Thiong'o, original name James Thiong'o Ngugi, born 5th January 1938 in Limuru, Kenya. A Kenyan writer who was considered East African leading novelist. His popular Weep Not Child was the first major novel in English by the East African. As he becomes sensitized to the effect of colonialism in Africa, Nagugiwa adopted his traditional name and wrote in the Bantu language of Kenya's Kikuyu people. Petals of Blood, the plunging murder of the three African director of Virgin owner, bravery set the sense for this fervent, hard-hitting novel about the disillusionment in independence Kenya. A deceptively simple tale, Petals of Blood is on the surface a suspenseful investigate over spectral triple murder in upcountry Kenya. Yet as the intertwined story of the four suspects unfold, a devastating picture emerges of a modern third world nation whose frustrated people feel their leaders have failed them time after time. Fanonism and constructive violence in Petal of Blood. The novel is at the first demonstrate that illustrate about the loss of the idea of independence and the destruction of hope about the betrayal about the throughput of corruption over humanity. Noviki suggests a way of redemption through violence is a constructive force to correct the neo-colonialist society, echoing the view of Fanon, who considered there is no other way the violence for the discolonialized, and this is the rather to a cleansing force for colonized people which redeem their inferiority complex. Fanonism. In the breach of the earth, Fanon presents the vision of violence as a constructive force. He says national liberation, nation renaissance, the restoration of national root to the people, commonwealth, whether maybe the leading use or the new formulas. Introduce decolonize is always a violent phenomenon and the neck truth and decolonize Europe for use as the searing bullet and blood straight knives with which emit from it Kenyan history of violence. Ngugi was very much influenced by Mew Mew. It was a word that touched the popular imagination and was forever to change the fate of Kenya and many other countries under the British rule. For the first time, the present the reach of the earth were talking the world to a highly sophisticated country with a long military history. This situation continued up to 1963 when Kenya was finally independent. Constructive violence in Petal of Blood. In the novel, Kenyan Ngugi writes about the Kenya that nobody can take away for him is the Kenya of working class of all nationalities and their heroic struggle against dominant by nature and other human over the countries. Here we see the face of Kenya, whose face is a reflection in emergent the center of action for the novel. Ngugi chose the barren through stricken part of Kenya where neo-colonialism put the interests of Fijian and abandons the people who had suffered and died for the land. The protagonist concerning violence. The petal of blood is a bloody deep and details that by the time it and nobody cared for the fate of the three petty prayer, whether it was a Vanja Karega. Munira or Abdullah, so who has killed them. Vanja, the extraordinary struggling female character, like Kenya itself, has to fight to stay alive, and for whom this condition is never too far away. Being humiliated by the society and the hostility of the world, she allowed herself to turn blue like the surrounding. She described the reality of neocolonial situation in a plain formulate: you eat somebody or you are eaten. You sit on somebody or somebody is eaten you. Conclusion: in this novel, Ngugi finally explores some optimates by means of consecutive violence. All the protagonists actively take a part or provide silent support in the violence act of purification. Vanja pregnancy, Joseph's school liberation, Kerega fate in the Ringwood strict and features generation which the spirit of purification encourage from the trend involved in freedom fighting and social revolution will be born to restore the serenity. This work citation. Thank you.
Well, my question is, how do the character in the Petals of Blood express or embody the feminist idea about violence?
Vanja's characters is a but Vanja's characters, the petals were expression the embodies feminist idea in the violence.
How construction violence using the law.
The consumption violence is used many better reason, many better reason, many better reason considered the might you can start, sir.
Google slide is not open.
Hello everyone. Today is the last day of our presentation. In today's presentation, my topic is a postmodern spirit in a Gugiva's Thiong'o's Petals of Blood based on the concept of Homi K. This is my personal information. Let's start with introduction. Gugiva Thiong'os and Homi K. Bhabha are well expressed from the post-colonial perspective. Develops a set of challenges, concept, and conscious this counter-narrative, the theoretical trap of the Western theoretical system by a crucial post-modern turn within a post-colonial paradigm, and his radical position in the free play of the postmodern and the post-colonial tools of Homi K. Bhabha will advantage and lead this article to explore the postmodern spirit in the Gugiva Thiong'o's Petal of Blood. The study of postmodernism in Gugiva's Petals of Blood is ultimately depend on the postcolonial theories of Homi K. Bhabha's hybridity, ambivalence, and mimicry. One of the major themes of Gugiva's novel is the deception of any notion of an epistemological rupture between a colonial and a post-colonial society, and the wide significance of the postmodernism condition lies, according to Homi K. Bhabha, in the awareness that the epistemological limits of those ecocentric ideas, which is also the enunciative boundaries of a range of the other distance, even a decision historical and voice woman or the colonized minority group and boundaries of the political sexualities in about the author. Gugiwa Thiong'o's original name was James Thiong'o Wagugi, born in January 5th, 1938. His first novel was a Whipped Not in a Child. About the novel, Petals of Blood is published in 1977, the postmodern spirit in the Petals of Blood. In Petals of Blood, Gugiva showed the anxiety about the hybridity, imagining threat to the cultural purity in the integrity through the transformation of the village, Ilmoro, into a proto-capitalist society with the problems of prostitution, social inequalities, misery, uncertainty, and inequality housing. The capitalist social system with its associated class struggle fundamentally influenced the social, cultural, philosophical, economical, and political ideas. Bhabha's concept that the new hybrid identity or subject position emerged from the interweaving of elements of the colonizer and the colonized challenges the validity and authenticity of any essential culture identity, which is very obvious seen in the fragmented of identity of new Ilmoros. In The Petals of Blood, Gugiva provides a rigorous portrayal of the effect of the British occupation in Kenya throughout his emphasis on the cultural diaspora in Ilmoro after a colonial rupture and the hybridized culture practice which his live-in show appreciately on the protagonist attempt to the imitate a colonizer culture and bring challenge in Inmore and new hybridity in Inmoro create a ambivalent space. People become a victims of his transformations. The Gugiva's Petal of Bloods, rewriting history and individual and collective struggle is a prominent notion of the novel. In Homi Bhabha's post-colonial discourse in the Petals of Blood, he is given three ideas that cultural hybridity, ambivalence, and mimicry. In cultural hybridity, in Petals of Blood, Gugiva represents the validity of Homi Bhabha's concept of hybridity, of which he compared the critical mixture culture that emerged as a result of the transformation on the Ilmoro society in the capitalist community. Consciously, the new hybrid culture distort the colonized identity and replacing it with the imperialist culture. In this hybridized culture, practice bring out a new fragment in Ilmoro and officiate a hybrid identity that integrate the Western imperialism culture. Hybridity in the petals of blood is a determined aggressive essence of a double violence and double wordness of the characters. In the others, ambivalence. According to Bhabha, this hybrid third phase is ambivalent positions where representations in a culture meaning have no prominent unity of fixity. The concept of ambivalence refers to a state of social, culture, mental, or a people's behavior condition that includes both position of a negative aspect. A battle of bloods attempt to resolve the complex ambivalence toward a socio-culture modernism realize and is a strong appear at the same time. The criticize the relation with corruption and for a weakness or a poor fit a traditional value or is a cultural need. In the third, in mimicry, Gugiwa critically exposed the dilemma of African notion in a general and Kenya is a particular which abroad with a Western value. Therefore, Gugiwa puts his critical tool to protect against the hegemonic accusation which aims to dismantle of a national fabric. In Bhabha's notes that the discourse of mimicry is constructed around an ambivalent that does not represent but repeat. Furthermore, Bhabhas argues that here process of mimicry does not have an end, but that there will be always something in a missing. The transformation of the new is always interpreted by culture, historical, and racial background. In conclusion, the Petals of Blood classified Ngugi as a post-colonial writer who tracked in his writing the issue of colonialism and the way it affected the African nation and created another way of life, culture, and social ideological. As a result of Ilmorogian identity shifted from its fixed position to a new one that completely different. This study of for concept of Homi Papas throughout which he built a radical and a critical thinking about the post-colonial nature nation, which is a conception tool of hybridity, ambivalence, and mimicry. This is my website.
Nidhi, my question is, how can we easily consider any text as a postmodern novel? And is the writer make a female character as a modern one in a African society? As we know that African society is a patriarchal and male-dominant society.
We easily identify that any text in a postmodern novel that in a postmodern novel they are considered as many key points on in use the postmodern writer like Homi Baba, then others writer who he use his idea and in postmodernism the Homi Baba is is a Rhino is a very great idealist of a postmodernist writer. They can use many writer use his exam ideas of in his postmodern novel and the writer makes him great. In
My question is, what is the concept of hybridity or limited
In a concept of hybridity is connected to the petals of blood, the Munira, Vanza, and Chimeria. Vanza raped Chimeria raped in Vanza, and she pregnant. That time she said and think that this was our new Kenya, and this is our developed Kenya, and that's they in Ngugi was used Bhabha's identity, use Bhabha's idea for hybridity in that Vanza's characters. Thank you.
Hello, I am Nilay Rathod, and I am presenting on the Chinua Achebe's poem "The Vultures." So, introduction: Chinua Achebe, Nigerian novelist, poet, critic, and also referred as the dominant figure in modern African literature. He is well known for his Things Fall Apart, and also known as the father of African literature. Vultures is a powerful narrative that explores the complexity of human nature in a unique and captivating way. The imagery and symbol conveys from the beauty of nature to the darkness of human nature. Overview of the poem: it is a it is divided into four parts, and the first section is the description of vulture, how they behave and how they live in a in their environment. The second is about the nature of love. The third is of the Belsen camp, and the life of a commandant of the Belsen camp. And the fourth is the conclusion of the poem, and it is about the good and evil, how there is a good in evil and how there is evil in good, like Indian philosophy. So the first stanza, Achebe is implying that even in the most gloomy, unpleasant aspects of life, there may be moment of beauty and love, like in the grayness and drizzle of the one despondent down, unstirred by harbingers of sunbreak, a vulture perching nestled close to his mate, his smooth bashed head, a pebble on a stem rooted, a dump of gross feathers inclined affectionately to hers. So usually we see vultures as a very dangerous and as well as ugly creatures. So here poet is describing this creature as a very uh, uh, noble creatures. The behavior of the vulture emphasizes the complexity of survival and moral complexity of existence. So they have to keep eye on their prey, and they may sit on a for a long time in a one tree. So Cody mentions in his comparison with Ezekiel's poem that with vultures we feel that they represent something depressing and violent, yet we are surprising by affection between these two birds. Second stanza, the opening lines of this stanza, the strange indeed how love in other ways so particular will pick a corner. So it suggests that love can manifest in a way that are unusual or unexpected. Overall, the nature of love can exist even in the most seemingly unlovable and dark places like the charnel house. So I have also asked the two describe what this stanza was trying to say to chat gpt, and it said like this. Next line, will pick up a corner in the charnel house refers to vulture's environment, which is a place of death and decay. The word charnel house refers to a building or a room where corpses are stored. So ChatGPT is giving the answer that this stanza is addressing to vulture, but there is no direct addressing to vulture in this stanza. So by this response, we can connect this with the poem Belsen concentration camp, a real-life Nazi concentration camp known for its atrocities during World War II. This image of commander as a caring father, his action and separate them, his action separates them for his domestic life, and it make a contrast to the atrocities he had committed, like in the no in the poem. Thus, commanded and Belsen camp going home for the day with fumes for human roast clinging rebelliously to his hairy nostril will stop at the wayside sweet shop and pick up a chocolate for his tender offspring. So here we see that at one side he is committing various crimes at the charnel house or the camp, and when he is going home, he is showing love to their offspring. So we can see this contrast in the human uh, org in this third stanza. Org, a creature often associated with ugliness and cruelty, but here in this stanza we see that, if you will, that grants even an org a tiny glowworm tender encapsulated in an icy cavern of a cruel heart. So we can see that the cruel heart is also containing or encapsulating in this word some sort of heart or a tenderness. The third line emphasizes that idea of hidden goodness within the world. The final line's potential of evil is inherent in the same qualities that makes us capable of love and tenderness. Belsen camp. Version Belsen was established as a prisoner of war camp in 1940s, and according to the article by Sherwood, the camp population grew from 7,300 to at least 60,000, and tens of thousands of people died in grossly inhuman conditions, including Anne Frank and his sister. The bodies are stretched out on the ground. These lines are from one of the survivors of this camp. These bodies stretched out on the ground. Nobody had strength to move them. The people on the other side of barbed wires didn't know we were who we were. They just stared as we approached. And in recent times, there is still this war going on between Russia and Ukrainian. So we see this data. These data are from of 2020 22. So we first two lines are total and civilians. How around 3,000 civilians are dead from this war, and this data is from the office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights. Conclusion: the imagery and the symbolism in Chinua Achebe's vultures are used to convey emotion and themes. From the beauty of nature to the darkness of human nature, it serves to emphasize the themes of nature and human nature, loss and hope, and redemption and sorry, the redemption. So here in this novel we see that what we perceive like the vultures are very ugly and dangerous, but and cruel creatures. But here poet is defining that the humans are also committing crimes that are very cruel, and on the other hand they are showing love to their relatives, like their offspring. But we only find that love to their offspring, we are not finding that they are also committing many notorious or very cruel crimes. So we see only the sides that we want to see. So that's all. These are the work citation. Thank you. So there are major two symbols, or we can say two symbols. First one is vulture in the very first stanza, which see the environment in which vultures are living and how they are surviving. So the first one is vulture, and then nature of love, and then the Belsen camp. And it is describing the human nature, how we to to the limits where we can go to commit the crimes, and others will not see the crime, but will see only the tenderness that we are showing to other human beings. So these are the basics that I have mentioned in my slides.
As we know that the Valsa means ugliness, but how can you define Valsa symbolism in today's time?
So vultures has not become it is not ugly in such a way, but it has become an archetype. So we are perceiving that as an ugly creature, but it is important in decomposing dead bodies and helping environment in or we yes, we can see that in today's time also. Thank you.
Yes. Um, so today I am Niro Umrelia, and today is the last as well as this the third day of our semester 4 presentation. And today the topic I have chosen from the paper African Literature, that is the political corruption and capitalist dominance in Ngugi Thiong'o's Petals of Bloods. So first, I'd like to introduce something like that. In my title, I have mentioned this flag is there, and there's Mau Mau rebellion. So the whole play, we can say, or the whole novel centers around this Mau Mau rebellion. So let us see how political corruption was there after in the post-independent Kenya, and how capitalist dominance was there. So it is the introductory slide to the novel, and first let us see the highlighted part. So written by Sir Thiong'o, and it was first published in 1977. So it deals with the social and economic problems in East Africa. So East, where the Kenya is located, in the Africa continent. So after independence, a greedy indigenous bourgeoisie. So how after British left in 1963 when this Kenya got independence, so how bourgeoisie were taking control over them, it was mentioned there. And the plot is based around the Kenyan emergency. So the Kenyan emergency, which is also known as Mau Mau rebellion, which took place between 1952 to 1960. So even in this Mau Mau rebellion, there was this between this timeline, this 1952 to 52 to 1960. So British wielded the power. So British overpowered this Kenya. Though in 1963, after 3 years, Kenya got independence from the British rule. And there are major characters like Munira. There are 4 major characters. One is woman, 3 are male. One is Munira, a school teacher who comes from the rich Jewish Christian family, and Vanja, and Abdullah and Karega. So minor characters like such as Nyakin Nyua, Kimeria, Chui, Nadiri Variera. The novel offers an account of the combination of, so what novel basically offers to the reader, it offers the combination of political content and artistic form. So how political content can be written in artistic form, it is there. Well, so how political corruption is there in the novel. So Petals of Blood attacks the socio-political reality in Africa, bribery, corruption. So these are some kind of say like frills of this main skirt. That is this political corruption, this bribery, corruption, nepotism became. So let us and again this Sir Terry Eagleton, a leading Marxist critic, in his book Marxism and Literary Criticism. So first thing is that this book Marxism and Literary Criticism comes in 1976, a year before the novel was published in 1977. So in this, so how this applicability can be seen within the context of the novel as far as this political corruption is concerned there. So Sir Terry Eagleton writes that I think what we are striving for is a form of organization that will release this tremendous energy of the people of East Africa, that is the people of Kenya. I think there is the danger of a black bourgeoisie, the new masters, as Anya Lumba has also mentioned, the new masters. So after these old masters, those were the colonizers, they are left, they leave the country. Then now who is the new masters? So the bourgeoisie, the elite class, the upper class aristocrat people, they will rule or they will build the power over this proletariat people. So it is there. And yes, so here these images are also given. So in the fifth, so how can we see this within the context of the novel? So where in the novel it occurs? So in the 5th chapter, so the overall novel is written in the 13th chapter in total. So it is quite lengthy a novel. So around 300 to 400 pages are there. In the 5th chapter of the novel, Petals of Blood, there comes the reference of the political rot. It means political defilation, we can say, in post-independent Kenya. So once Kenya got independent, so what kind of political situation was there in there? So the year, so it is the lines from the novel I have written there. The year that followed Vanja's departure from Ilmoro was momentous for the whole country. It was the year that started with a mysterious political murder. Now what happens? That mysterious political murder of whom? Then he was a national of Asian origins, it is true. But one famous, somebody like who was protesting against this imperialism power, even before this country got independence from the British rule, and even when this country got independence, then the person was killed. Why? Because he was opposing against the imperialistic power that exists within the nation. So here you will find this dictator kind of person is walking over, and another thing is interesting thing is this color red. So it can be symbolized as the Marxism, that he is walking over the poor's blood and blood as well. So the person is naked, and even the people are throwing their shirts to make their emperor-like person, dictator, autocrat walk on that. And in the second image, you will find that African leadership is mummified totally. So it is totally taped around. So it cannot do anything. So it just stays there, it sees, but it is unable to do anything. So it is the African leadership. And in the next slide, I have mentioned this politicians and the state forces. So how Olutola writes that politicians and the state forces of coercion do the acts of savagery and brutality. So quite kleptocratic state, we can say dystopic society, as Sir Orwell has also envisioned like this. And so day in and day out, see Uwasomba, he also writes that day in and day out, the African continent, the whole African continent, he's talking about not particularly Kenya, but it includes the Kenya as well. The African continent is wrecked by afflictions, disasters, macroeconomic crisis, and dysfunctions. Debt overhang, corruption, high level illiteracy, squalor, disease, hunger, and other negative and destabilizing conditions thrown up by imperialism. Again, this reference of imperialism comes that once the Britishers have left, then who will rule the power? Then the imperialistic power will be there. So hyper nationality, the jingoist people will be there, like we have to bring our old culture back. So this regressive approach, these two trajectory are there, that right or left, or regressive or progressive things. So these people are regressive, those who favor in imperialism. So again, we can compare this thing like again, I would like to remind you that there is the four institutions. There are four institutions in Victorian society, where the one is the home institution, where the father rules because he earns, or he is the sole breadwinner of the home. So here, what happens, like if we can compare the father as the politician or the new master, then and child as the people or the populace of the country, then we say, okay, this populace of the country are like having this tendency that if my father gives me chocolate or anything that I like, then I will obey my father only then. So if politicians are like showing something, some tinsels to the people, or some kind of offer schemes, then the people will follow them. Whatever they will speak, like Lucky and Pozo in Waiting for Godot, we find that whatever Lucky speaks, Pozo repeats. So these things will happen. But here people are forgetting that power is there in their hand, not in the ruler's hand, or not in the leader's hand. So these things should be done, and this thing is there. Again, so in the following chapter number 6, so before we saw the chapter number 5, in the following chapter number 6, the author highlights the uselessness of the education system. Now again, see in novel what happens, like he hits upon this education system, that how neocolonialism and many other things, like so how education system was hinted by him of the education system that was only focused on theory based teaching and learning along with the timid teachers, who here in the times of dire drought in Ilmoro failed to address the issue at the moment. So now what happens, like the teachers here, our teachers are like, the Munira is the main teacher, and Wanja and Karega are also teaching to the children there in the Ilmoro village. Okay. So what happens, basically, there is a drought or famine, we can say. So there, these teachers are like this. And again, how novelist expresses his anguish by writing. See, let me read a few of lines from this quotation from the novel. So it was hopeless. It was a gigantic deception. He and Munira were two ostrich. So again, he compares this that Karega and Munira were two ostrich. So he gives metaphor to this. Ostrich burying their heads in the sand of a classroom, ignoring the howling winds and the sun outside. So whatever situation was there outside, they were not hinting upon it. They were just taking children in the only syllabus-based thing. So they were not going out. So this is not the good thing in the education system. So whatever you are learning, we basically feel that you have to connect it with the outside. And many teachers are doing that, and they are just like targeted by the outsiders. You are teaching these children. You are just putting these children against pitting them against us like this. But it is not so that this is the duty of a teacher that should be done. But here it is not done. So this critique is made by the author. And how could they, as teachers, here he further says, how could they, as teachers, albeit in a primary school, ignore the reality of draft, the listless faces before them? Before listless faces mean the children. What had education, history, and geography, and nature study, and maths got to say to this draft? Now all their education system is failing because they are not applying the real life things, because it is the thing that whatever we are learning is there in the outside life. Otherwise it is of no significance. It is quite null and void thing. And now again I have quoted Anya Lumba, that Anya Lumba has rightly quotes honest. So there should be D in quoted. Fine, I will rectify it later on. So Ernest Renan, in her groundbreaking work titled as Colonialism and Postcolonialism, so we have learned this, second edition 2005, which was published in the, so with reference to what we know today as eugenics. So again, the labor division in post, we can say post-independent Kenya, how it was like. See, here one image, I think, yes, you can see that there is a kind of a business person. He was fed by the poor. And generally, we have this notion, like in Gujarati, we suppose say that Santoshi Nar Sadasuki. So those who have kind of satiation within them, they are always happy. But it is not so. Within satiation, you are feeding those eaters or those wolves, we can say. So how Anya Lumba expresses these things in her book, like so resist ideologies. So she quotes whom? Ernest Renan. So resist ideologies identified different sections of people as intrinsically or biologically suited for particular tasks. Amy Cesar angrily quotes Ernest Renan on this point. So again, verbal irony is coming here. So this thing is that how like here a race of masters and soldiers. So again, these words are like quite key words to understand the themes of scenario of the political thing. The race of masters and soldiers. So these two races, in terms of this political scenario, are very dangerous because masters are there to rule, and who will protect them? The soldiers will protect them. On cost of whom? On cost of the people. Those who are going to be ruled by the masters and the soldiers as well. This is the thing there, and let me move further. Okay, yeah. So now the second point of our presentation is the capitalist dominance. Capitalist dominance. So there is no rule that political fiction shouldn't wear its heart on its sleeve. And Petals of Blood, which is filled with intricate threading of different stories and first-person narratives, is not a simplistic anti-capitalism manifesto. So Kasim writes in this article in the Guardian. Ngugi interprets the class struggle in the novel along the Marxist line. So again, the reference of Marxism is coming time and again because he is Thiong'o is like a Marxist, literary author, we can say, and this is the thing, and playwright as well. The struggle is a result of the conduct of the power elite in their relationship with the lower classes. So how the struggle is happening that between these class, there is a clash between elite and lower classes after the colonizers left or the British left. So again, there is a good book by Paul Kennedy, African Capitalism, that you can also refer to. So these things, so how capital was taking a curb over the people, or over, especially over the poor class, it was there. Now some things like that. Ngugi has criticized capitalism in this novel. He has exposed the ugly side of it. So it is not so that capitalism has always brought the ugly side. There is a good side as well, that it turns up people to do something very like speedily, or we can say, or whatever they are having, they have to be forced to do it. So, but here what happens that Ngugi Thiong'o only focuses upon the ugly side of it. And in now, how does it occur in the novel? So in the part 2, so it is not the chapter 2, but it is the part 2. So there is part 1, 2, and 3 in between the chapterization. So in the part 2, toward Bethlehem, Abdullah gives his testimony of once having been the part. So Abdullah is the character, like he is having one bar in Ilmorong, and he has an adopted son. Joseph is the name, and this things is there. So Abdullah gives his testimony of once having been the part of the Mau Mau rebellion, which was against the bourgeoisie of Kenya and British colonizers. So again, this realistic historical reference is coming. So historical evidence can also be found within the textual evidence in this novel. So how he describes that. And despite the sun and the drought and his anxiety over the fate of his donkey, he would feel that Mau Mau was only a link in the chain in the long struggle of African people through different times at different places. New horizons, again, like the time in the forest with Ole Masai, Ole Masai or Ole Masi. They called him Muhindi, but now he didn't mind that. So here is the reference of Mau Mau rebellion. So direct reference is given. That's good. In the further course of the same part, we find that Naderi Warrior. See now again, see how capitalism is working within this novel. So it is that Naderi Warrior. We are having one character. So in beginning, how he is depicted by the author, like he is very kind person, that he wants to stay with the people, the poor people. But once he gets to the money, once he gets the orders from the elite class, then he does not consider them. So here is the whole description of him, that how he is taken over by capitalism or capitalist ideology. So again, it is there. And yes, here are my work cited. And now I'd like to have the questions, please.
Yes, Nero, my question is, where would you locate the political brutality, like you mentioned, in the capitalist, ugly side of capitalism, and who are the bourgeoisie in the novel?
Yes, sure. See, first, the direct reference from the characters we have. First, let us see, where would you locate political brutality? So first, I have mentioned about the murder of this Asian person. So he was against the imperialism, and he kept on rebelling against them, and he was murdered by the imperialists. And even, see, there was a reference, if you read in the slide there, that the police does not do anything. Or this, he was not captured, anybody was not captured. The person is killed, the file is closed, nothing happens. So it is the political brutality, we can say, in a sense. And who are the bourgeoisie in the novel? So first, obvious character is that our Naderi Warrior. So once he is very kind of like a Marxist, but he wants to stay with the people, poor class. Now again, he becomes very rich person, and then he does not care for the poor people. So here we are having this bourgeoisie. in terms of this another very era. So yeah, more okay. Acha, the next one. Impact of
The question is,
yes.
what is the impact of political corruption and capitalist dominance on the characters of
Yes,
internal?
yes, exactly. So good question. See, what is the first? I would like to go by the first. Like, what is the political impact of political corruption? So there are characters like this. There is draft, or we can say famine in the Ilmoro. Then these four people, that Wanja, then Munira and other two, that Abdullah and Karega, they four travel to Nairobi, and there they find some MPs. They are corrupt, and they are not getting aid for their village, because the village there is famine and nobody has a food to eat. So they are with hope, they are living for the Nairobi, and in Nairobi they are finding nothing, but they are just like put in the jail, they are barred. So these things happen. So this is the impact on the four characters of the political corruption within the novel we find. And a second question, in capitalist dominance of the characters. Yes, in capitalist dominance, what happens? Like, see, when the capitalist society is there as soon as, then you have to strive for yourself, for your survival. You have to go on in the food struggle. Then you have to do like things like. The Vanja becomes prostitute. She opens a whorehouse. Later on, was burnt, put on the fire by Munira, perhaps Munira or Karega. So Vanja, in brief, I would like to say that yes, Vanja becomes a prostitute and he opens a warehouse, like say a whorehouse. Understand the where the prostitute works. You understand the things now. So this is the thing. So these are the impacts that for the sake of survival, a person are forced to do anything, even if they are not interested in doing this. So this is the impact of this capitalism in the novel on one character. Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
Good. Your slides were very good. Infographics that you have used were also very appropriate. Well collected. Good hard work is done. Yes. And citations are also good. Eagleton, Anya Lumba, then this journal from Nigeria. This is Journal of Pan-African Studies. That also is good reference.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, as today is our last presentation, and my presentation is on African literature, in which I am going to deal with motherhood and madness in the choice of motherhood by Buchi and Cheta. The table of content, motherhood, brief summary of the novel, the African woman, motherhood as a blessing or curse, iconic Bollywood mothers, and motherhood in Indian mythology. So basically, motherhood is holds an exclusive place in African culture and society, as we have seen from the novel Jane Eyre. We can take the example of White Surrogacy. It has the example of a mad woman in attic. African culture is interwoven with motherhood from so deeply. We can say that. The novel's title is a bit ironic. Protagonist's intense desire for motherhood later becomes a plight of motherhood, which is unspeakable, and then her tragic death. Emecheta describes another controversial issue of polygamy in the novel. A woman must learn to be fulfilled in herself, no matter who she is. A brief summary of the novel. So, in the novel, Nuigo is the protagonist. She was a daughter of Ona, and by the time she marries Naife, and how the societal issues carries out her life with financial strain and her husband's infidelity. Nuigo must navigate the expectations of her society, which places a great value on the motherhood, but offers little support for mothers who struggles. As the years go by, Nuigo's children grow up and leave her. She becomes increasingly lonely and isolated, but she continues to believe in the importance of motherhood. And later on, she dies alone, reflecting on her life and the joys and sorrows of motherhood. So the African woman, Nuigo's fate was from very starting. It was tragic because when she gave birth to Gozi, he died, and then she was not able to come out of that pain, and she was trapped into the claws of traditional taboos that only help to propel male chauvinism. African woman's role is not, however, pessimistic, but Emecheta has used Nuigo's unhappy life to show the fate which awaits the woman who lets herself be chained by the certain cultural values or customs. What is role of education in women's life? That education in Africa has been a vital factor to women's liberation. To be regarded as a fulfilled woman today and have a good societal status, one has to get educated. This is the entire problem about the social changes today. One wonders the place of cultural values in the woman's empowerment. In short, it can such values still give status to women today? So when Nuigo is going through a lot of troubles, we can see that how she was not able to bear the weight of her family on her own shoulder, including her child. She has the burden of the other three wife of Naife, and how she was troubling the financial issues. Motherhood blessing or curse. In this novel, Nuigo's life is marked by a series of disappointments and hardship that begin with her inability to conceive a child first. And then the stress and pressure of motherhood take a toll on Nuigo's mental health, and she begins to experience what can be described as madness. So, in many of African novels, we can see that madness was interwoven with a woman's character, and that is given here too. Nuigo's madness is also fueled by the expectations placed on her by society. So from very start, a woman is uh, going through a lot of pressures of society, so that she is not able to fulfill her own dreams and her study or career or whatever we can say that. Now, iconic Bollywood mother. Here I have taken six movies in which in Jazba, Aishwarya Rai is playing a role of a lawyer, and how her daughter is kidnapped and how she fights for her daughter. So in a way that these are the mothers who are the strongest examples. We can say that in Pa, Vidya Balan is also a very strong example. How she's bring and brought up his son in a way that she knew that he was going to die, but how she is carrying her role of mother in the movie. And even in English, we can see that in English, there is a lot of uh, a good a point of education, that how Shri Devi is carrying out the mother who is not able to speak English or study English. When she goes to the foreign countries, she started working on herself. So it is a example of a woman who wants to do something for herself. And this another movie, Matar, is about a woman who is about a woman who is going through a lot of trouble, because when her daughter was kidnapped and raped by six men, she was not able to save her, but later on she fights for her, and then she kills the six victims, sorry, the six rapist who killed her daughter. In Mom movie, we can see the role of Sridevi is a way that she is also trying to save her daughter. So there is a lot of movies have been released to be a good role model of mother. Now moving to the Indian mythology mothers. First, we can take Sita. Sita was wife of Ram, and when she gave birth to Love and Kush, she was not in a palace. She was in a ashram of Rishi Valmiki. She brought up her both of son in a ashram with a very simplistic life. So Sita was, though she was belonging from a royal family. She was a woman, a strong woman who was able to brought up their sons in the ashram in jungle area. Now Shakuntala. So Shakuntala was same as Sita. She was going through a lot of trouble. She was single mother who brought up his son in also same, not in same ashram, but an ashram. So we can say that from very through this societal pressure that woman and particularly the mother figure has to survive and save her child. Now Devki and Yashoda has the concept of Devki who gives birth to Krishna, and then later on Yashoda brought up his son. So their depart how their depart gives the kind of uh, emotion that they lost their son. Now Kunti is a woman who lost her son in fight, and then she cursed Krishna and how everything happens. Same as Satyavati and Draupadi. These are the female characters from Mahabharata who gone through the murder of, we can say, the how their son died in the Mahabharata, and how they are giving an example of strongest mother in the Indian mythology. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that whether from real life to literature or mythology, the concept of motherhood is mostly about sacrifice. Here, no ego is going through societal pressures, economic trouble, though she manages to carry her responsibility well. Though she dies with no joy, Emecheta gives sarcastic title to the novel, The Joys of Motherhood. But I don't think so. There is any kind of a joy, but because as long as she is going through, it is more that the sorrows of motherhood, we can say that. Thus the novel portrays a motherhood as a complex multifaceted experience, one that brings both challenges and rewards. It highlights the importance of mother's love and sacrifice she makes her children, while also acknowledging the difficulties and societal pressures that come with her role in the novel. Thank you. These are my works cited.
My question is, how would you differentiate a movie go from these characters of Bollywood or Indian mythology? So, like in movies, directors usually take creative liberty to add drama to the movie. So, how would you differentiate this with a newest character in the play?
Okay, so there's no need to differentiate as a no ego as a mother. We don't need to differentiate her character with the Bollywood movies character, because somehow what is a no ego is going through, we can see in many other movies. So apart from this differentiate thing, we can conclude that any mother or in any culture or any literature or in Bollywood, we can see the same thing, societal pressures woman is going through. So we don't need to differentiate no ego with Bollywood movies.
Actually, my question is there any religious ideology working behind the prejudicially accepted gender roles, especially when the role of motherhood and child rearing comes? Like, is there any a religious ideology that religious promotes directly or indirectly, according to you or in your opinion?
In religious ideology, I find that whether in a religious kind of a thing or it is interwoven with a mother, that everyone like behave as a mother figure, as a like whatever it is, her sacrifices is not mentioned in the any of texts, but we can not we cannot say that she is not she is as in religious ideology, we don't find any woman who is that sacrificed, but they are mentioning her as a woman who is like giving less importance and more importance to the religious ideology.
Okay, still the concept is not very clearly connected, because connect may not go well with this idea. of motherhood in that sense, where there is socio-cultural pressure, and then there is professional pressure. People who are working, there is a different kind of a professional pressure under which it's working. And this is this socio-cultural dynamics of the idea of motherhood. So even don't know about all the films, but some of the films like English to English or Pa, they doesn't deal as such with that idea of motherhood. So just having a mother figure doesn't solve that problem of how this African novel deals with that idea. You need to perhaps go into more of a rural spaces, films which is of a rural background. There, the women face this kinds of pressures. That, if it comes, then you can connect rather than urban spaces. Okay, so with this, we have ended our session of presentations. Two other presentations like of dissertation you have made in the national seminar and of translation studies and comparative literature. Also you have made in the classroom presentation. So by the time we end, a few things about the coming days. In the coming days, what you are supposed to do. Let me share the screen. So our coming schedule is something like this. This schedule we prepared last month, where 16 to 28 you were working on your dissertations, which you submitted as a draft. On first, second, third, we were supposed to give you the recommendations, but because of this heavy load of seminar, we are not able to overview everybody's dissertation. But now, subsequently, we will keep on doing that, and then we will suggest you. But even during the presentation time, whatever things are suggested, that all you have to incorporate, and any of those things that you have done, just Nehalba, concentrate here, because these things are more for you people who remained absent constantly now. So keep mobile ને થોડો આરામ આપો, બાજુમાં મૂકી દો, એટલે થોડી વાર તો સાંભળીએ 5 મિનિટ. આપણે કે મીટિંગમાં નથી આવ્યા, ડેઝર્ટેશનની ક્લાસમાં 20 દિવસની જ હાજરી પૂરી છે, એટલે કંઈ ખબર જ નથી આપણે કે શું આપણે કરવાનું છે. એટલે અત્યારે સૂચના તમારા માટે, બીજા બધા માટે રિપીટેશન થાય. ત્યારે તમે પાછા મોબાઈલમાં ખોવાયેલા રહો તો તમારા સુધી વાત જ ન પહોંચે જે પહોંચાડવાની છે. So all the suggestions which are made in during this to everybody, that you have to evaluate in your own way. You have to read your dissertation and you have to see that any chances of plagiarism, citation things, quality citations is necessary, and what you are writing in your own way, your own contribution is also equally important in that. So a few things we will suggest. Yesterday I have sent one email also regarding your front page, 2 certificates that you have to attach, and a few things that we have suggested. You have to put your ABC ID, your SID number, seat number also you will get by that time, so that all will come in the front page. So that all you have to take care of and complete your things. 3 days, 7 to 10, we have completed our this presentations also. Now 1 week you have a break. So 16th we are going to meet now for digital portfolio presentation. So in this 5 days, you have to do works like complete your digital portfolio. First thing, the top priority is to see that your entire portfolio, everything that we have discussed so far, very importantly, the page about what is literature, your 2 years back page, what you have written, now how you rework on that, what is literature, and how literature shaped you. That part is very important, which is to be written by you. And now, earlier we used to have lots of problem about that page, because normally that is written in the digital portfolio. Other things are from blog and other things. So that is where the real language was coming, your language. And many people were commenting that when we read this page, the language is different. And in blog and other thing, language is different. Because in blog, there is cut, copy, paste. Here you have to write on your own. But now, maybe most of you will take help of ChatGPT to correct your language So language issue will also not be there. But when you do that, you have to be careful that unnecessary content has not come, which should not be there. Which like if that is your writing, it should look like your writing. Many people have tried, like when teachers are teaching second language, English as a second language in Spain, in France, in Germany. Those teachers keep on sharing their experience with AI, and they have said that if you tell ChatGPT that I am a Singaporean learner of English language and make an error like a Singaporean makes an error, and so that way text also is generated, so you can try that I am an Indian, and draft something for me like an Indian. So even the common error comes. When common error comes, it seems like it is your writing. When the writing is completely error free, it is very doubtful that this cannot be your writing. There's a slight error, is a sign of a that this is written by human being. The machine will not make such mistakes. So that you have to be careful that when you take help of the tools, your own common sense should be at work when you are assembling things from various sources. So that all we will see in digital portfolio. On that day you will demonstrate your work and also guide and teach to semester 2 students. So those who are alert, they may start working also, so that in the end of the year they don't have a burden. You can share your experience also. If you have started working last year, then you are free. If you have not started working, then you are in burden, you are in pressure during last days. So that all you can tell them. So those who are alert, they may start working also, because these things are not very difficult that you have to go to NASA to learn how to prepare a website or digital portfolio. It is like within 3 minutes people can start learning and start putting the things. There will be summer break. By that time, everything that they were supposed to do for semester 1 and 2, all videos, blogs, UG writings, that all they can put also. So at the end of the year, when dissertation writing is there, there is lesser burden. So that experience also you can share with the students, juniors, when they come to observe or try to see your digital portfolio. So that will be on 16. So for that you have to work and complete the thing. Along with that, you will have other works like the leaders of all the committees. You will have to prepare your PPT for the work that is done throughout the year, this last year. So photographs, charts, wherever necessary, graphical way presentation. So on that also you have to work. Whatever work is done, not done also, like you can say that we initially planned to do all this thing, but we're not able to do owing to whatever reasons are there. So that also you can say. So whatever work is done, how you are satisfied as a leader, that all you can share, your personal experience, which can be somewhere learning for the other students. So when they will become the leaders, they also can learn from your experience when you share as a leader how your entire year was. So that will be leaders' work. Leaders will be preparing PPT. The documentation committee will be working on memorabilia. So I hope you might have started sharing and collecting the information from semester 2 students and this class also. Everybody has to contribute compulsorily at least one thing, like your creative work or critical work, your photograph or your painting or your blog, something. So no students, zero contribution should be there. Khushboo, Nehalba, listen this carefully, so that you will, today you will get lost, then you will never come. So today we have to tell you that you have to remain present and contribute with other people. નહીતર પછી ખોવાઈ જશો તો હાથમાં જ નહીં આવો, પછી સીધા માર્કશીટ લેવા આવશો પાછા. So be careful that now these are final days, and if you will come and sign, then your attendance will be up to the mark. So you, those whose attendance is very low, you should every day come and work here only instead of working at home. Work here, mark your attendance, so that way also it can help you in having a reasonable percentage of attendance also. And whatever is required, give the details for certificates, for the events that you have participated on annual day. All certificate we will collect and then we will give to the students. So you have to inform and you have to contribute also. When somebody is asking, then do it hurriedly. Don't wait કે આપણે નિરાતે 2-4 દિવસે કરશું. So everybody will be under the pressure of their own work also. So you have to help each other. And if things are not coming from semester 2 students, then they will be coming for presentation from tomorrow. Their schedule is 11 to 15. Their presentations are there. So you can catch them here. જે આવતા જ ન હોય, પકડાતા જ ન હોય, એ બધા આ 5 દિવસ તો આવશે. એટલે આ 5 દિવસ જે ઉઘરાણી કરવાની હોય, મારે જે કરવાની હોય હું કરીશ, તમારે કરવાની હોય તમારે કરવાની. એટલે this 5 days they will come, so you can catch them. અને તોય જવાબ ના આપ્યો તો મને રિમાઇન્ડર આપવાનો, એટલે while the presentation is going on, બરાબર એનો વારો આવવાનો બાકી હોય ત્યારે જ એને કહીએ, એટલે પ્રેશર થોડું વધારે હાઈ થાય અને પરફોર્મન્સ એ પાછું બગડે, એટલે યાદ વધુ સમય રહે. So inform me if any things are not coming from semester 2 in this 5 days. You will have to do that. You have to come and complete that work. So this is their schedule. And so memorabilia, certificates you have to prepare. Some certificates will print also, so that also we need to work on. And committee leaders, PPT, and your digital portfolio. This work you should work in 5 days, and you have to complete these things in the coming days. Then we will have this farewell function and other things also, which will be continuing as per this schedule only. Okay? So with this, we end our this session also of our presentation and other things, and we'll meet on 16th now for your digital portfolio presentations.